Now, the way I see things going, and all of you also see it, we are not building a better future for our children. And the only way that we can do that, believe you me or not, is through procurement. Procurement is the key. I don't care what people say. I know you are in Treasury, but everything starts with procurement. It's a fact, and the power that we have, we are not harnessing it. That is why when Lusani contacted me, I said, I'm going to do it. This I do as part of my corporate social responsibility, because I believe that's the only way. Europe, US, China, India, they've made it through procurement and supply chain. We are not. This year's theme is based on my experiences and also discussions with some of the most powerful people in the world, controlling companies that are, well, most of them are bigger than the GDPs of Africa. You don't have a lot of companies that turn revenue over 400 billion US dollars. And I have the opportunity to interact with them in terms of why are we not growing as a continent? And it dawned on me that in Africa, what we have been doing post-independence is not really negotiating. We have been bargaining. We've been driven too much by price. So a lot of my brothers and sisters in this room, you've been programmed to price chisel, reduce the price. You don't really negotiate. And when you are price chiseling, how do you develop the small SMMEs? How do they compete? And this is what I'm going to share with you in terms of how we need to change our mindset. And it's not just from the procurement side. Even when it comes to doing privatization, selling state assets, we bargain. We don't negotiate. And the reason being is sometimes we don't know what we want. We don't know what we have. We don't do our homework. How many of you in this room have had the opportunity to even accompany governments to some of these international deals? Have you, any of you? Are you invited? Hence, the challenges we have. We are not visible. And I believe we as a collective, we need to find a way. One of the initiatives that I'm starting with the AU is that by 2020, procurement should be studied at high school level, like economics, like art, like music, like accounting. We need to start sowing the seed very early so that the future generation will understand the strategic importance of procurement to national development. At this point, it's not. So that's what I'm going to share with you, and I hope that by the time we leave this room as a collective, we will start spreading the message, because otherwise, another 50 years, it will not be me talking, it will be your kids competing again, because we have not built a better future. We have an agreement with the future generation, and we can do it through procurement. I need to mention this because they support what I do. NEPAD is very, very interested. Hence, I'm taking my message to the African Union in terms of what we are doing as a profession and why they need to support us and give us the license to practice. Of course, there is SIPs, but there are also emerging trends where you cannot license to practice SIPs in South Africa. So there are local emerging professional bodies. For example, like SICA. SICA is part of a global body. That is what is going to happen in terms of the license to practice. There's going to be a local body, which is part of the bigger SIPS organization. You need it. It's a fact of life, and SIPS knows that. ACCA could not be licensed in South Africa, hence you have SICA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. So the license to practice is that's what is going to happen. In Africa, the trend had already started. They are already looking at doing that. And I don't see why South Africa will not do the same thing. It's going to happen. So that people will be proud of holding that license. And it will cut a lot of the corruptive practices. For me, I don't believe procurement professionals are corrupt. It's the system that is very corruptive. Nobody says how to be a thief. But when you are operating a system which is very confused with lack of power, then you have all these gaps. That is what has been happening, which is rather unfortunate and has really hampered a lot of developments in South Africa and the rest of the continent. I will leave Lusani with the presentation, so there's no need to take notes. I will share with you in terms of the negotiation and bargaining. This is, for me, is key, because there has to be a mindset change from here and into our politicians, because that is what they've been doing with our assets from Cape to Cairo. And then I'll share with you some of the perceptivities from these key decision makers. By the way, some of your colleagues, very high level, took part in this study between 2009 and now. I told you I'm an African who happens to be part of come from part of a continent called Ghana and now living in South Africa. I say this for a reason. When you meet an American, he doesn't tell you he's from Chicago. He says, I'm American. When you meet an Indian, he doesn't tell you I'm from Uttar Pradesh. He says, I'm an Indian. When you meet a Chinese, he doesn't say I'm from Guangzhou. He says, I'm a Chinese. Now, as a collective, I believe we are very powerful. 1 billion people, same as the population of India. As individual nations, we are very small. We can't leverage our collective power. It will take a while because we have these borders. I firmly believe that our ancestors used to walk up and down like the Maasai until the borders came through. So we have all these challenges, but it's a matter of time. I don't think about tomorrow. I think about 30 years' time. That is my thinking. That is how you build a nation. That is how Europe obviously came into being. And all of them used the power of procurement. In the olden days, they used to talk about bartering, exchange. That's all procurement, correct? Yes. What drives me is this little boy. I was once one of them. What has been happening, unfortunately, in our part of the world is that while the rest is sourcing strategically through negotiations, what we do, unfortunately, is we just buy. People laugh when I talk about the issue of the underwear and the socks that we wear. I can confidently again say in this room, assuming all of you are wearing underwear like me, 99% of it is not from this continent. It's imported. Now, if simple things like an underwear, the continent we cannot produce for ourselves, how do you expect to create jobs? When you read that book in there, even if 250 million of the population, they wear underwear, and it's produced in South Africa, guess the amount of jobs it will create. If South Africa was to supply 250 million underwears, your belt, your shoes, everything comes from outside. There was an industry in Cape Town, textile industry. Where is it now? It's gone. Because we like to buy cheap stuff. That is not strategically sourcing. You just buy. Short-term thinking, but there's long-term pain. We need to change the mindset because development comes at a cost. When we are all buying these cheap things, we are not creating the jobs for this little one. And that's where procurement is key. That's the power you have to make a better future.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.